Thank you very much. Now, Cristiano Sebastiani.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman. I would like first to thank you, all the members of this committee, for what you have done and what you are still doing for the victim of Rasmussen case of a social economics committee. Without your intervention, without Olaf's report, the situation would still be the same. And I mention that because it's in the light of what we have achieved for this committee that we have been called to come to Barcelona to Fusion for Energy in order to support the staff and to support still the victims. And we have put at their disposal exactly the same pool of experts that we work with, composed by lawyers, specialists, psychiatrists, and also those who were dealing with the famous law case of France Telecom, the suicide, and recently with La Poste. Because what we think the staff deserve is to have a real professional investigation when it comes to deal with suicide. What we have been confronted of is sort of bricolage made by three so-called experts. You can look in the internet about their CVs, and you can easily realize if it is serious that inside a European institution such a case can be dealt in such an unprofessional way. The staff of Fusion for Energy is perhaps the most vulnerable staff of any agency because it's the most committed to the project. If you speak with these colleagues, they are not just working there. It's the dream of their life. It's the mission that they are carrying out. And all the experts define this kind of approach, travailleurs sentinelles, those who are the most motivated as the most vulnerable, and sometimes are, hopefully, those who come to the final hat as our colleague Mario. And no one can pretend today to say that the suicide is something out of the blue. The suicide is just the conclusion of years of complaint about the way in which Fusion for Energy is organized, is dealt with, toxic management. If you look at any staff survey made, you can find reference to the Trump style, to the idea that silence is the only way to work, that criticism is totally unacceptable, while in such a project, to allow the staff, to allow the specialists to drink the bill, to say what is not properly done, is exactly in the interest of the service, but also in the interest of the citizens. What Michel has mentioned about the fairness of expressing himself, the fairness of express criticism, even as a staff representative, to be accused of having a hidden agenda, to work with the enemy of the ITER project. If you try to say that you cannot longer afford this kind of management, is the way in which this social dialogue and the dialogue itself is described, organized, and we cannot any longer accept it. Fusion for Energy is presenting today to you more or less what Social Economic Committee has presented to you for years. We will change, we will improve, we will put forward all the possible initiatives, consultants, slides, chambre d'écoute, whatever we could do in order to improve the situation, just discovering the problem that have been denied for years and years. And now it's no longer possible to deny because there is a suicide. So something must be done. What can we do now? Just to sell the new products in order to forget the past. And it's not what we can accept. You can accept, any citizen, European citizen can accept. Suicide is a serious matter that must be dealt in the professional way. Look at the letter that our colleague has sent. He starts mentioning, my final gesture is due to a collapse at work. This situation was longer for years. I feel to be the scapegoat. At the end of the investigation, what we have now is something that is Fusion for Energy has never denied a relationship between Mario's suicide and working environment. So, what can we do now? You cannot assess, just wait for something? No. What we want now, and my request is quite clear, we do support Mr. Schremer's request for an investigation independently made about the circumstances of the suicide. Is what the staff wants, is what the Commission asks, is what the board. But don't play with the rules. If you ask Olaf to make an assessment, Olaf will answer that he cannot do it. Olaf needs victims. If you have victims, Olaf cannot open an investigation. The experience of the social committee is there in order to show. So what we must provide is the full protection to the victims. They must be free to go to Olaf. They will have full protection from the Commission, from Fusion for Energy. They feel free to go there and to expose what they have been suffering for years. Without that, everyone can ask Olaf to intervene, but Olaf cannot do it. So first, let's open this investigation. Should Olaf eventually not be able to do it, we will ask some other internal, external, independent entity to make this investigation that they are needed. Our colleagues and our staff deserve a clear answer. Second, we together must ensure to this Fusion for Energy enough resources in order to deal with workload. Workload is not the reasons of the suicide. Workload is one of the pieces of the disaster of the toxic management, but it's not introducing new resources that you could solve the problem in Fusion for Energy. Still, resources must be given, number and quality. Mr. Schremer is totally, and Massimo is totally right. We need resources, and these resources must be in line with the attractiveness of the agency. You cannot deal such a project with contractual agent, with the salary proposed, and with the not independence that is offered. I'm more than glad to see here today, Mrs. Ingestad, that is the proof that the Commission is taking seriously this file. A reflection must be open how these agencies are dealt, and the governance of the agencies must be changed. We have enough of these directors coming pretending that the staff regulation is not flexible enough, that the principles of the civil service are not suitable for this project. They cannot hire and fire people freely like in a private world. Even if you go in a private firm, it's not that true that you can hire whatever you want and you can fire whoever you want. But this rhetoric must stop. And this director, being expert, must be assisted by a strong administration, someone knowledgeable in the staff regulation, being able to say no to the director when the director pretends things that are unacceptable under the basic principle of the civil service that we all want to serve. It is the Commission to do it. The Commission managed with you. I was here with the Vice President Šefčovič.
May I ask you to finalize,
sure.
please?
I'm very glad. I would just mention that we managed to do it for executive agency with success with your committee. And finally, we want to have the notice for the new director to be in line with what I just mentioned. In 2 words, I would like the new director to understand fully that the address of Fusion for Energy is .eu and not .com. Thank you.
So thank you very much for your understanding, because the time delay is already huge. Now, Richard Czarnecki as rapporteur.